In the deep winter of England, it gets dark early, the tree-lined road is drizzling, and the wet leaves hang down heavily, making the air feel a bit heavier. Inside a small bar by the road, the heating is on, making it as warm as spring. Under the dim and soft lights, Lucas sat beside a few old friends. They burst into laughter from time to time and whispered at other times, using whiskey to welcome Lucas back. During a lull in the conversation, Lucas glanced out of the corner of his eye, through the fog-blurred window. He caught a fleeting glimpse of a red figure. He only lost his focus for a moment, then slowly retracted his gaze, thinking that he hadn't adjusted to the time difference yet and was still imagining he was back in his home country. Half an hour later, Lucas received a call from his landlord and had to go back temporarily. After telling his friends, he got up and picked up his coat from the hanger. At this time, the old solid wood door of the bar was pushed open, and a cold wind rushed in. Someone at the table suddenly shouted, "Oh, beauty!" All the friends, except Lucas, turned around to look. Only he calmly dusted off the little bits of dust on his black overcoat. Among these friends, there were some enthusiastic ones. In just a few seconds, they had already gone up to strike up a conversation. "Look at this beautiful lady, drinking alone." The doctor, who usually talked about academics, trying to flirt like this, sounded a bit greasy. Lucas chuckled, put on his coat, and his eyes were indifferent as he looked past everyone. Just as he was about to walk out, a familiar female voice suddenly reached his ears. "Nope. I'm here to meet my friend." Lucas's steps suddenly froze. When he turned around and saw Lily, he had a dazed feeling. She was wearing a red short-style cape. Her long hair was black, shiny, and thick, and her features were as bright as a Barbie doll. Mainly, when she held her face and smiled, it made Lucas feel as if the more than 10-hour flight was just a blink of an eye. And the long distance had shrunk proportionally. It was as if he was back in that familiar country again. And the familiar feeling of being surrounded by a willful and spoiled atmosphere also returned. But Lucas just gave her a cold look, as if sizing up a stranger. Yet his steps walked straight towards her. When he stopped, he reached out to block the glass of wine the bartender handed over. "What are you doing here?" "An hour ago, he received a message from Lily asking where he was. He casually took a photo of his wine glass and sent it to her. He never expected that she would actually show up. Her decisiveness in action seemed to make light of the distance between countries. "I'm here to meet a friend." Lily winked at him. "What a coincidence." "If you say so." Lucas raised his eyebrows and looked at the wall clock. "It's getting late. You'd better go back." After that, he pushed aside the wine in his hand, put money on the table, and then pulled her out. Lily. Because of her high-heeled shoes, Lily had difficulty moving and could only take small steps to follow him out. "Where do you live?" "Outside." Lucas didn't give Lily a chance to make up an excuse. "How long are you staying this time? Do your family know you're in England?" No. Of course they know." Lily was a bit stunned by his 3 consecutive questions and stuttered, which completely ruined her credibility. Lucas glanced at her and directly took out his phone to call Lisa. Lily felt insulted. She laughed out of anger, put her hands on her hips, and gasped for breath, not wanting to explain anything at all. "Fine. Call. Go ahead." However, before the call connected, Lucas saw a blonde-haired and blue-eyed girl running over, shouting, "Christine," and hugging Lily tightly. Lily had studied here during her undergraduate years, so she had many friends and relatives. She had planned to meet with friends tonight. When she saw Lucas's photo, she casually asked and found out which bar it was, so she simply invited her friends here. The girl's hair was so thick that it covered Lily's face. It took her a while to struggle and show her eyes to look at Lucas. "See, I really came to meet a friend, not to run into you." After all, she was really looking forward to seeing Lucas's embarrassed face when she was being self-indulgent for the first time. But Lucas didn't show the expression she expected. In the silence, due to the time difference, Lisa didn't answer the phone and it hung up automatically. Lucas calmly put away his phone and stared straight at Lily. "Well then." He tilted his head and stared at her. "Have fun." Lily looked into his eyes. Her mind suddenly went blank, not knowing what to say, and just nodded. Lucas turned and stepped down the steps, then slowly withdrew his gaze from her face. The landlord said it was a small problem of a leaking floor. but it actually took a lot of time to fix. When Lucas was free and was about to go out, his friend called and said that they had waited too long and decided to go home. Lucas naturally agreed, but before hanging up, he thought of something and asked, "Has the Chinese girl in the bar left?" There were only a few Asian faces in the bar, so his friend knew exactly who he was talking about. "No, they're having a great time and have ordered a lot of wine." After hanging up the phone, Lucas opened the window and reached out to feel the temperature outside. He caught cold snowflakes. It was snowing. He sighed, put on his coat, and went out. When Lucas returned to the bar, the small snow grains had turned into hexagonal snowflakes, fluttering down and landing on the hair and shoulders of passers-by. It was nearly 10 o'clock, and the bar was about to close. There were not many customers left. The tables and chairs in this place were permeated with the smell of alcohol. As soon as he walked in, it was like entering a world of intoxication. This time, Lily had been drinking a lot of wine, but she was still one step away from getting completely drunk. The moment she saw Lucas, she felt that last step had been crossed. He stood at the door, against the light, with snowflakes fluttering behind him, and his outline was a bit blurred. Lily squinted her eyes and was about to walk over when her friend beside her pulled her to drink again, distracted. She thought she was hallucinating because she had drunk too much and turned back to talk to her friend. At this time, the bartender was yawning. The music in the speaker had been turned off, and the laughter and chatter of the two echoed slightly in the bar, lively yet lonely. So Lucas's low voice calling Lily was particularly noticeable. Lily leaned out from the sofa, stared at Lucas for a moment, then suddenly blinked and got up to walk towards him. "Oh, we meet again." She tilted her head to look at him, her breath carrying a bit of alcohol. "Did you come back here especially for me?" A drunk man staggered past, and Lucas casually pulled Lily in front of him. "Well, it's not safe at night. You've been drinking, and I'm worried about you going home alone." Lucas didn't deny the purpose of coming back in the snow, but what he said was so reasonable that it made people feel that he was really just worried about the safety of a female friend. After that, he looked down at her. "So, when are you going to go home?" "Ah." Lily looked back at her friend. "We're leaving soon." Lucas didn't say anything more. He walked over first, nodded to the girl, and then sat down. "I'll wait for you." Lily was stunned for a while. The person who has a crush always tends to think too much. She felt that with Lucas sitting beside her and their legs touching. It was already beyond the attitude of taking care. The girl sized up Lucas a few times, as if she understood something, and then teasingly asked Lily, "Is he your boyfriend?" Anyway, she was drunk, so Lily giggled. "Not yet." She turned her head to look at Lucas and whispered, "Who knows if he will be in the future?" Lucas raised his eyes, stared at her for a moment, and then reached out to turn her head back. "Just a friend." Another half an hour passed, and only 2 bottles of wine on the table had been finished. Lucas looked at the way they were drinking and estimated that they wouldn't be able to finish all the wine on the table in one night. He wondered how her family could be so comfortable letting her come to a foreign country alone. "It's getting late," Lucas whispered in Lily's ear when she was having a good time. "How much longer are you going to stay out?" "You don't understand us young people," Lily said with a drunken look. "It's not even 11 o'clock. Isn't it still early? Are you going to bed already, bro?" As she spoke, another glass of wine was passed over from the opposite side. Lily swayed and took it. Just as her lips touched the rim of the glass, it was taken away. Lucas held her glass, raised his head, and drank it all in one gulp, then casually put down the glass. He looked as if he had just drunk a cup of tea. "I'm getting old. I can't handle this kind of thing." Lily didn't really hear what he said. Her eyes were fixed on the glass that he had drunk from and had her lip print on it. She suddenly regretted not wearing brighter lipstick today. Then she could have left her mark on his lips and the next half an hour. When Lily came to her senses, there was very little wine left on the table. Looking back, it seemed that Lucas had drunk most of it, and he still looked calm, showing no sign of having drunk so much wine. His eyes were even as clear as if he was about to attend an academic forum. "Can we go now?" "Fine." Lily pouted. Since he had drunk all her wine, what else could she do but go home? With a dizzy head, she followed Lucas out. At this time, the street was empty and desolate. with only a few drunk people passing by occasionally. Lucas wondered where Lily got the courage to go out drinking with a girl in this situation that he called a taxi and had to wait for a while for it to arrive. The two stood under the street lamp. One was as calm as water, and the other's face was full of inexplicable excitement. Don't go out drinking so late in the future. It's not always possible for someone to come and pick you up. Lily, you're so nosy. You're not even my boyfriend. Lucas looked down at her. Then why do you call me every time you're in trouble? Do you consider me your boyfriend? Lily turned her head and smiled. Yeah, you just realized that. Lucas snorted softly. I didn't even know I had become someone else's boyfriend. Right. Lily nodded thoughtfully. You're at a disadvantage then. Lucas didn't respond to her. Just as he was about to raise his hand to check the time, a sweet fragrance suddenly wafted over. Lily's warm breath mixed with the cold snowflakes rushed into his lips. Her inborn post-drinking performance art nature was revealed again. Lily's head was dizzy. The street in front of her was upside down, and the whole world seemed fake. So she dared to kiss Lucas boldly. Lucas immediately frowned and pushed her away. But Lily was wearing high-heeled shoes and couldn't stand his strength. Seeing that she was about to fall, Lucas had to pull her back to Lily's perception. This back and forth movement was like swinging on a swing. When she returned to Lucas's arms, she became even more daring, clinging to his shoulders and nibbling at his lips. But it was just a light peck on the lips. Like a chick, Lucas just stood there against the street lamp, neither pushing her away nor making any other moves. Letting Lily do as she pleased, the snow was getting heavier and heavier. The snowflakes fell into the gap between them, and were carried by Lily's warm lips, coldly covering Lucas's lips. Lucas kept his eyes calmly downcast. Suddenly, he opened his mouth, and with his tongue, he took the half-melted snowflake and sent it into Lily's mouth. The moment the snowflakes intertwined on their tongues, they instantly melted, turning into a strong current that made the one who took the initiative to kiss stand there dumbfounded, with her mouth half open and her eyes forgetting to blink. But Lucas seemed as if nothing had happened. He looked at her indifferently and said, Lily, have you had enough of taking advantage of me? After sending Lily back to the hotel, it took a long time to sort things out. When Lucas came out of the hotel, the snow was falling even more heavily. The taxi driver didn't wait, so he had to call another one. He didn't take his coat, and wearing only a shirt and a round-neck sweater, he couldn't resist the cold of the snow and wind. Lucas stood by the roadside. The cold wind that penetrated his bones mixed with a faint smell of women's perfume, which was indistinct but lingering. This time Lily came to England. Even though nothing major had happened yet, he had a feeling that his future plans would be disrupted again. Looking back on his nearly 30-year-old life, every stage of his life had been carefully planned. Even his daily plans were not affected by any external forces, and he rarely changed his course because of temptation. He always moved forward steadily according to his own decisions, unless it was an irresistible force. Since he met Lily, without any natural disasters or serious illnesses, he had made sharp turns on the road of implementing his plans because of her again and again. The next morning, Lily woke up with a splitting headache. She groped for a bottle of mineral water from the bedside table and drank it frantically, cursing the fake wine sold in capitalist countries. After drinking half a bottle of mineral water, she got out of bed groggily. The moment her feet touched the ground, a soreness all over her body hit her, and Lily plopped down on the floor. Almost unable to get up, she hobbled to the bathroom. And when she saw the red marks on her collarbone in the mirror, her mind went blank. What's going on? She opened the collar of her nightgown, looked down, and then turned to look at the messy clothes on the bed and one of Lucas's coats. Flop. Lily fell into the bathroom again. She never expected that Lucas would be such a heartless guy who would leave after sleeping with her. It took her a few minutes to get up. Stubborn as she was, Lily covered her mouth and returned to the bedside. She took out her phone from the pillowcase and found Lucas's chat box. Half an hour later, she finally sent a message. Lily, I'm awake. Lucas. Lucas, you should be feeling pretty bad right now. Remember to drink some water, take a bath, and have a good rest. Lily swallowed hard and blushed. Lily, how do you know I'm not feeling well? Lucas, judging by your state last night, do you think you'd feel good today? Lily bit her finger and typed nervously. What was my state like last night? Lucas, forgot. Do you want me to help you remember? Lily, Lily. How? Lily, you didn't record a video, did you? Lucas. No, Lucas. But if there's a next time, I think I might record it. Lily, you actually have such a hobby. Lily, I never thought you were such a person. Two-faced. Lucas. Alright, go and rest. I'm also very tired. Lily. Rest. No way. We need to talk this through. Lily. If you did something, just admit it. I'm not forcing you to take responsibility. What kind of man records a video? Lucas. Who did anything with you? Lily. Lily. If not you, then who? This time, Lucas was silent for several minutes. Lucas. There's a spa downstairs in the hotel, and the front desk also provides glucose. Lily. A few seconds later, Lucas directly called her on voice. Lily was stunned for a moment before answering. If you're still drunk, go back to sleep. It's still early. As for what you're imagining, you might want to recall the scene of you dancing around the pillar while taking off your clothes last night and falling 3 times in the bathroom and then not letting go of my sleeve. If I didn't take off my coat, I might not have been able to go home. And I have a very important exchange class today. On the other end of the phone, Lucas took off his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. He had originally planned to prepare his teaching materials at home last night, but because of Lily, he was delayed for several hours. As someone who rarely disrupted his daily routine, he had to stay up all night. Lily. If there's a next time, I really will record a video. After a long time, Lily said weakly, Oh, I see. Then you go ahead and be busy. Hearing her voice, Lucas inexplicably smiled. Why do you sound so disappointed? Lily. Well, I am disappointed. Before Lucas could speak, Lily's shyness finally came. And she quickly changed the subject. When should I return your coat? Lucas. So you're going to return it? Lily. Lily. Of course I am. Lucas. I thought you'd keep it because of your feelings for me. When these words were spoken, Lily suddenly fell silent. Although Lily had always been chasing after Lucas, she had never made her feelings clear, and Lucas's words had undoubtedly laid bare their relationship. And something had changed. Oh, it took Lily a long time to say, then I won't return it. Lucas. Fine. That day, Emily lay in bed like a useless person for a long time. As the alcohol gradually wore off, fragments of last night's memories slowly pieced together in her mind. Emily wished she could jump off the building right then. She sighed again. Why couldn't she learn the skill of getting blackout drunk? Why couldn't she control her hands, legs, and mouth and did so many stupid things when she was drunk? Surprisingly, Adam still talked to her nicely today. He was really well-mannered. Moreover, she got herself all sore from her one-sided drunken tantrum. But she aggressively thought that Adam was the one who made her feel like this. So, Emily isolated herself for a whole week and didn't dare to Adam during this period. She was busy arranging her new place, running around furniture stores every day, just as she got her home in order and hadn't even caught her breath. It was time for the new semester to start. Although she was almost 23 years old and had experienced countless new semesters, this was the first time Emily was a little excited about starting school now. Learning is no longer a process for her family. It was her own choice. Her enthusiasm for it had increased exponentially, and she was also mentally prepared for its difficulty. Her foundation was weak, so it was inevitable that it would be difficult for her to pick up her studies again. But she never expected that catching up would be so extremely difficult. Perhaps people are fearless when they are ignorant. The more she learned, the more she felt that her knowledge was insufficient. Before, she used to show off in front of Adam every day, thinking that she was young, beautiful, and rich. How could any man not like her? As for her degree, she thought it was just a piece of paper and dispensable. But when she actually tried to immerse herself in learning, she found that it was a world she had never set foot in before. The people around her no longer talked about makeup, food, and beautiful girls. Her ears were filled with all kinds of profound words she didn't understand. She didn't understand why some people could talk for 5 or 6 hours about a philosophical problem that had nothing to do with their lives. She also couldn't understand where the sense of achievement came from when someone solved a math problem after filling half a meter of draft paper, but she clearly realized that this was a gap she had to bridge between herself and Adam. The first step was naturally to gradually replace her party-going friends with a group of good students. In fact, it was difficult for Emily to fit into this circle. Most of the time, when they talked to her, they had nothing in common. Fortunately, she was beautiful, cute, warm-hearted, and always generous in treating others. So these Chinese compatriots couldn't refuse to include her. However, after all, they were not on the same level and couldn't truly open their hearts to each other. Emily could clearly feel their attitude. Everyone treated her like a clown, a pleasing doll. They would take her to meals and parties, but when it came to serious matters, there seemed to be an invisible barrier between them. Facing the facts, she had to admit that her money and beauty, which she was so proud of, were worthless in the face of knowledge. She used to be the high and mighty Miss Chin, but now she felt like an illiterate. She was so frustrated. Emily's confidence gradually collapsed in her daily study life. After class that day, Emily didn't rush home. She went to a coffee shop with some friends. Everyone was preparing for next week's workshop, although she couldn't offer much help. She had a good aesthetic sense and could make beautiful PPTs. The materials piled in front of her were higher than the computer screen. Her long wavy hair was loosely coiled at the back of her head, with a pen stuck in it casually. She wasn't wearing makeup or contact lenses, but a pair of framed glasses. With her haggard face, she actually looked a bit like a studious student. While she was burying her head, checking the content over and over again, a voice suddenly sounded above her head. Emily. Emily suddenly looked up, and her glasses slipped down, making her look a little dazed. Adam had always thought that Emily came to the UK on a whim and would go back after having fun for a few days. He didn't expect that she hadn't appeared frequently in his life during this period. When they met again, he was surprised to see her studying. "It really is you." Adam smiled. "What are you doing here?" I'm doing my homework here." Emily adjusted her glasses, speaking in a very low voice and not daring to look Adam in the eye. She couldn't help it, besides not daring to recall her drunken behavior. She had also withdrawn her show-off attitude during this period due to the invisible blows. She was embarrassed to show off in front of Adam all the time. She even chatted with him on Facebook Messenger much less often. So now, meeting him without makeup, she felt a little timid. Okay, there were several middle-aged blonde and blue-eyed men beside Adam. They looked like professors. Apparently, they didn't come to the coffee shop to kill time. "Well, we'll be leaving first." Seeing that he was about to leave, Emily couldn't hold back and suddenly called out to him. "Adam." He turned around. "What's up? Tomorrow is the weekend. You usually go to the library on weekends, right?" Emily gently picked at the frame of her glasses and said cautiously, "Can I go to the library with you?" Adam raised his eyebrows, unable to hide his surprise. He was surprised that she actually offered to go to the library, and also that she was being so polite. Compared to the bold kiss she gave him before, this request was nothing. Her shyness always showed up in the most unexpected places. Adam asked, "What do you want to do in the library?" Although Emily lacked confidence, she was still a little annoyed when she heard this. "I'm going to study, of course. Can't you see I have so much work to do?" Adam looked at her for a while and then said, "The library is closed tomorrow." Emily knew that Adam was rejecting her. She nodded dejectedly. "Oh, okay." Adam turned and walked 2 steps. His eyes lingered on the bare branches outside the window for a few seconds. Then he suddenly walked back, leaned on her table with one hand, and bent down to glance at the content of her PPT. "Do you understand all of this?" Although she really didn't want to admit it, Emily knew she couldn't hide it any longer. "Well, kind of. Half and half." Adam chuckled. Half and half. It seemed that her math wasn't very good either. "Bring your things to my place tomorrow." Adam tapped her table lightly. "You need to redo this content. I think I can help." It was more than half an hour after Adam left that Emily finally realized what had happened. Did Adam finally install a door at his place? Of course. Even when going to Adam's place, Emily didn't dare to have any other plans. Otherwise, if she accidentally reminded them of that drunken night, it wouldn't be good for either of them. In addition, after being outsmarted by the intellectuals around her, Emily had become much more subdued. She didn't dare to show off anymore and was determined to get rid of her image as a vase. So when she went to Adam's place, she carried a school bag and a laptop. dressed very plainly like a primary school student going to a tutoring class, before she left. Her friend who had been staying at her place walked out sleepily and asked her where she was going. Emily simply grabbed her and asked, "Do I look okay? Do I look too childish?" Her friend yawned. "Honey, you're young. Are you going on a date today?" "A date? Well, sort of." Emily stammered. Her friend raised her eyebrows. "Well, you look very beautiful today, but I think I can give you a little something." After that, she turned around and went upstairs. Soon, she came running down and stuffed something into Emily's school bag. Emily. What? Why did she put so many condoms in her bag? Hey. Emily forced a smile and quickly took the things out. "These will expire if you leave them in my bag." Her friend was confused. "Isn't it a date?" Emily said. "Well, it's more like a Chinese-style date. Not that kind of date. Her friend looked disappointed and turned to sit down for breakfast. "Oh, I got it wrong." Seeing her friend's disappointment, Emily also felt a bit down. Besides, even if it was that kind of date, did she really need to put so many in? Adam was a person who went to bed at 10:30 on the dot every day. He probably even reminded his partner not to indulge in sex while looking at the clock. 89 in the morning. The sky was still overcast. And the wind was cold. Adam was holding a cup of hot water in one hand and his glasses in the other. With his arm leaning on the balcony, he watched as a car slowly pulled up in front of his house. Emily got out of the car with her school bag on her back, walked up a few steps, and was about to press the doorbell on the fence when she suddenly remembered something and ran back. Adam put on his glasses and saw Emily bending down to fix her hair in the rear-view mirror. When he saw Emily coming, Adam was about to turn around and go downstairs to open the door, but he walked a few steps and didn't hear the doorbell. When he looked back, he found that Emily had gone back to the rear-view mirror to fix her hair again. She dawdled for more than 10 minutes before the doorbell finally rang. Adam thought he was really boring, actually watching her look at herself in the mirror for more than 10 minutes. "Have you had breakfast?" When he opened the door, Adam reached out to take her school bag. "Yes, I have," with the attitude of learning. Emily was very well behaved. She didn't let Adam take her bag and directly asked, "Where should I go?" "The study." Adam took her to the 3rd floor and turned into a small, bright attic. He pointed to the table by the window and said, "You can sit here. I'll read on the sofa over there. If you have any questions, just call me." Then he added, "I'm reading a casual book. Don't be nervous." "Okay, got it." Emily didn't dare to look around Adam's house when she walked from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor. Now, with the thought of, if I don't look at him, he won't look at me. She secretly looked around the study while pretending to rummage through her school bag. The place wasn't big, but it was neatly organized. At a glance, the books on the bookshelf were neatly arranged by category. After looking around, her eyes returned to the table, and there was a potted hydroponic flower in the corner. "Emily," Adam suddenly spoke from behind. "Are you really here to study?" Emily suddenly hugged the book in her hand to her chest and didn't turn to look at him. Of course. She just took a few more glances at the study. Why did it seem to him that she had other motives? Adam didn't say anything, but there was a soft sound of footsteps. Emily hugged the book tightly, suddenly feeling a little nervous. Adam's breath gradually surrounded her. After a moment of pause, a hand appeared beside Emily. Adam leaned against her from behind, propped himself up with one hand, and looked down at the top of her head. He said calmly, "You dropped something." Then, with his other hand, he put a small square piece in front of her eyes. "Emily." Damn it, it was the one that had been left behind from this morning's pack. She didn't even notice that she had taken it out of her school bag. "And no, this isn't mine." Adam maintained his position and said in a neither too loud nor too soft voice, "Then whose is it?" Emily said, "It's my friend's." "What kind of friend would put a condom in your bag?" Adam lowered his head slightly, and his chin accidentally touched the top of her head. "Is it your boyfriend, Emily?" She should have refuted him forcefully, but at this moment, she was completely overpowered. "And no, I don't have a boyfriend. It's just a girl who asked me to hold it for her." Worried that Adam wouldn't believe her, Emily blushed and tried to come up with more explanations, but Adam suddenly patted her head. "Just study." "Great, thanks to her dear roommate. Now she really could only study hard at Adam's place. Today didn't start well. But as long as Emily behaved herself, there wouldn't be any more problems. She did her homework honestly for the whole morning. When she finished and was about to leave, she suddenly leaned on the door, turned around, and asked, "Can I come to you again if I have any questions next time?" "Sure." Adam nodded. "You can." Emily smiled brightly, showing her white teeth. "Great. I'll come next weekend." For Adam, tutoring Emily was really a test of his ability to simplify complex things. Moreover, Adam wasn't a person with a lot of free time. He had his own things to do. He could only spare some time to give her some guidance, not pay constant attention to her. After several times, Emily now felt as free coming to Adam's place to study as she did going to the library. She also stayed longer and longer. Sometimes, she would show up with her school bag right after Adam got up. Occasionally, she would even cook lunch at Adam's place. If her friends back in China knew that she could sit at a desk for 7 or 8 hours, they might think she had lost the use of her legs. Time passed by unconsciously. The bare tree branches finally sprouted tender buds when the first spring breeze blew. Adam finished tidying up the sundries on the first floor. When he came upstairs, he saw Emily sound asleep, lying on the table by the window. The fallen leaves outside the window fluttered in the sunbeam, making the quiet scene come alive. Adam stood there, mesmerized, for several seconds. Then he caught a glimpse of the dense academic papers on Emily's computer screen. He reached out his hand towards the top of her head, intending to give her a little tap. But then, as if possessed, he pinched a strand of her hair and gently swept it across her nose. Emily was tickled awake and opened her eyes groggily. "Mr. Adam." Adam had a new nickname in Emily's mouth recently. "Is it time for lunch?" "Not yet." Adam pointed at her computer. "Why don't you take a break first?" "No, I'd better finish this first," she said. Half an hour later, Emily finally managed to finish the main part of her presentation with some difficulty. Rubbing her eyes, she asked, "Do you have classes next week?" Adam had no idea how Emily got this information. As a guest professor at a certain school, he only taught a few classes, and he hadn't mentioned this to Emily. "Yes. What's up?" Adam replied, leaning on the table with her head propped up. Emily said, "I want to go and listen." "Can I?" "It's not necessary," Adam said. "The content is very professional. It might be boring for you." "It doesn't matter. After all, it's just listening to a class. And I'll be with my best friend's brother. He can explain things to me," Emily said. "Huh." Adam was a bit surprised. Emily continued, "My best friend's brother told me that he's going to have your class next week." "What a coincidence." "If you say so," Adam said casually, lowering his head and flipping through a couple of pages of his book. "How come you even know which classes your best friend's brother is taking?" "Just chatting casually," Emily said. Seeing that it was getting late, she started to pack her school bag. "So, can I really go?" "It's up to you," Adam said. On the day of the class, Emily was a bit nervous. Although she had gotten used to taking classes with studious students over the past 6 months, this time it was Adam standing on the podium. She felt like a soldier being inspected. Before going out, she tried on 7 or 8 outfits in front of the mirror. She thought one was too plain, and another was too flashy and not suitable for a student. After much fuss, she also encountered a street parade on the way. She got up 3 hours early but still arrived at the classroom right on the dot. There were far more people in the classroom than Emily had expected. She was a bit stunned when she entered. Fortunately, her friend Tom had saved a seat for her and waved her over from afar. It was a rare sunny and warm spring day. Outside the window, the birds were singing, and the flowers were blooming. The students in the classroom were in a great mood, chatting in groups and making a lot of noise. As soon as Emily sat down, the noisy classroom suddenly fell silent for a moment. She looked up and saw Adam enter the door and walk onto the podium. He slightly lowered his head, his expression calm, like a gentle breeze. He dispelled the noise in the room. With his arrival, the atmosphere in the classroom became quiet but not dull. Emily noticed that all the girls in the classroom, regardless of their nationalities, had their eyes fixed on him. Some bolder ones looked as if they wanted to tear off Adam's tie and shirt. Emily rolled her eyes and snorted. Were these people here to study or to find a date? Fortunately, Adam seemed to be handling the situation well. He didn't rush to turn on the projector. leaning on the table with one hand. He scanned the audience. After his eyes lingered on Emily for a moment, he started today's class. The moment he started speaking, Emily's gaze froze. Since coming to the UK, it was such a coincidence that she had never had a chance to hear Adam speak English in an official setting. This time was the first. His accent wasn't like that of someone with a fluent Oxford accent, because he had traveled and studied in many countries. His accent carried the charm of different places. Every syllable at the end of his words made Emily's ears tingle. She held her face in her hands and stared at him, losing herself in thought. In her mind, she had already imagined traveling around the world with him in the future. Emily. Tom beside her poked her. Are you listening? Ah. Emily suddenly came back to her senses. Oh, I was just thinking about something. She glanced at Adam. The projector behind him still wasn't turned on. What's he talking about now? Tom was the older brother of Emily's best friend. They had grown up together and later came to the UK to study. Tom knew exactly how weak Emily was in her studies. However, Emily had changed a lot recently. Her thirst for knowledge had grown rapidly. Tom was a helpful top student. He had been the savior of struggling students in his high school class. So naturally, he wouldn't ignore Emily now that he knew that Emily couldn't understand what the teacher on the podium was saying. So he would whisper some explanations in her ear from time to time. With his help, Emily could roughly understand what Adam was talking about. She would even nod occasionally, pretending to be thinking along with Adam's words, but as Adam's topic got deeper, Emily only stared at his face and drifted off for a couple of seconds, and then she couldn't keep up. Her mind was full of thoughts like, is he speaking English? Why can't I even understand the words? Seeing that she was falling behind, Emily anxiously grabbed Tom's sleeve and asked eagerly, what's he talking about now? Did he change the topic? Tom was amused by her confused look. He patted the back of her head and whispered a few explanations. Just then, the person on the podium suddenly called out, Christine. Ah. Emily suddenly looked up and instinctively replied in Chinese. What's wrong? Tom had just been talking to Emily and didn't notice what Adam had said either. It was a girl behind them who reminded Emily. The teacher is asking you to answer a question. Emily looked back at the girl and, out of the corner of her eye, saw that everyone in the classroom was looking at her, under the gaze of so many people. She was too embarrassed to ask Adam to repeat the question. It was more embarrassing to admit that she hadn't been listening than not being able to answer the question. Adam asked, don't you know, although Emily was a poor student, she had always been a teacher's pet because of her connections. Teachers had never criticized her in class, not even given her a hard look. Now, being stared at by a room full of top students, Emily's face turned red visibly. Her hands under the table kept tugging at Tom's clothes. But Tom couldn't help her at this moment. He could only give her a look, indicating that he was out of ideas. Adam looked at her calmly and indifferently, almost like when they first met. Emily lowered her head in embarrassment, nervously picking at her fingers. She was trying to think of an excuse for herself after class when she heard Adam say in English, if you don't want to listen to me, then why are you here wasting time and taking up someone else's seat? Her fingers dug into her flesh, sensing the gazes from around her. Her face burned. She felt alternately red and pale and didn't raise her head again until the end of the class. After class, as Adam was surrounded by students for discussions, he caught a glimpse of Emily running out of the classroom from the corner of his eye. A sense of annoyance welled up in his heart, but the students were too enthusiastic. By the time he managed to break away, half an hour had passed. Emily was nowhere to be seen outside, and she didn't answer her phone. Adam stood by the roadside, frowning tightly and taking a deep breath. He was about to go home, but when he turned around, he saw Emily come out from behind a tree. Even from a distance, he could clearly feel the sense of grievance emanating from her. He quickly walked towards her. When he stopped in front of her, she took a step back. Adam, what do you mean? Emily frowned, her voice agitated and tinged with a sob. You know very well that I'm not good at studying. You know that I came to listen to this difficult class just for you. You know that I can't understand what you're saying. But why did you make me look so stupid in public? Do you think I'm not worthy of your class? If so, you could have just said so. I won't come again. I won't bother you anymore. She raised her hand to rub her sore eyes. It's already so hard for me to study all day long. When I first came here, I couldn't sleep at night. It's as difficult for me to study as it would be for a primary school student to learn advanced math. People around me don't want to hang out with me. I can't even join their conversations. It takes me 3 days to understand what the teacher teaches in one class. In the UK, the rain comes suddenly. It was sunny when they went out, but now the sky was overcast. And raindrops started to fall without warning. She started sobbing and reciting the introduction to art. Adam didn't say anything. He took off his coat and held it over Emily's head. One of the basic characteristics of art is its emotional aspect. The emotions in art are aesthetic emotions, a kind of non-utilitarian emotions with universal human nature. Emotions are one of the important psychological factors in the creation, generation, and reception of art. At the same time, emotions are also the basic elements of artistic creation. The emotions of artists are often fully expressed through artistic images. Look at these things. My classmates understood them perfectly years ago, but I still have to memorize them by rote, and I can't even do it well. I really don't know what I have to do for you to stop treating me like a shallow person. Do I have to be reborn? Whether it was rain or tears on her face, Emily wiped it away. She saw that Adam's hair was wet, and water was dripping from the tips. His usually calm eyes were fixed intently on her. She didn't understand why, even though she was crying, Adam could still be so calm. After getting along for so long, was she still not worthy of making him show even the slightest emotional change? I'm sorry. It's my fault. I shouldn't have lost my temper with you. A drop of water slid off Adam's glasses and fell into his mouth as he spoke. He raised his hand, his palm passing through Emily's hair, and gently held the back of her neck. Applying a little pressure, Emily felt as if he was about to pull her into his arms. But he didn't. He just gently stroked the back of her ear with his thumb and said softly, "Don't stand here in the rain. Go home first." Okay, all the way. They didn't say a word. While Adam was driving, Emily sat quietly, seemingly still in sadness. In fact, she had secretly clenched her fists. What had she just said? She knew exactly the gap between herself and Adam. Yet she had exposed all her weaknesses. Over the past few months, she had finally been able to say something profound occasionally to show off. But now Adam knew that she had just been memorizing things. So as soon as they arrived at her place, Emily got out of the car quickly without even saying, "Thank you." When she reached the steps, she just casually said, "You should go home and change your clothes." As soon as she closed the door, Emily leaned against the wall and took several deep breaths. Then she went to change her clothes and take a bath. She lay in the bathtub for a long time, her emotions rising and falling with the water waves. As soon as she closed her eyes, she could imagine Adam looking down on her. Emily lay back and slid down in the bathtub, thinking that she might as well drown. But soon she climbed out, quickly dried her body, put on her bathrobe, and ran out to order takeout. She hadn't eaten much for breakfast and had been through so much when she got back. She was really hungry. The takeout here wasn't very efficient. She had to wait a full 40 minutes before the doorbell rang. Emily rushed over quickly. When she opened the door, it wasn't the delivery guy but Adam standing there. His hair hung wet and soft, and his half-dry clothes stuck to his body, showing different shades due to the water stains. It was obvious that he had been standing there the whole time. Emily didn't know why he hadn't left. Yet she seemed to have some idea. Those uncertain thoughts were swirling in her head, making her eyes look confused. "What are you doing?" Adam's face was serious, even more so than when he was teaching in class. Being stared at like this, Emily felt a sense of unease. After all, she wasn't a child anymore. When Adam showed such an expression, she knew that things could go in two extreme directions. "Emily, listen to me," he finally spoke, his voice gentle. Emily felt a bit soothed and nodded calmly. "Okay, I'm listening." Adam said, "You know, I'm not young anymore, but for all these years, love has never been part of my plans." Emily thought, this sounds like the let-down speech. She forced a smile and nodded. "Yeah, I know." Adam continued, "Once I have a serious girlfriend, she will be a significant part of my life's blueprint. So I don't want to deceive myself or waste anyone else's time." "I see." Emily nodded again. "You don't have to be so. If you want to reject me, just say it directly." "I'm not rejecting you. I'm asking you to be prepared to enter a long-term relationship with me. Adam reached out and pushed the door that was separating them completely open. If you still want to keep liking me. Emily suddenly looked up, looking at Adam in disbelief. What do you mean? What I mean is. Adam took a step forward. His Adam's apple twitched slightly. He wanted to explain more clearly but felt it was unnecessary. He reached out, grabbed the back of Emily's neck, and lowered his head to kiss her. And the intertwined breath of the two. Emily's mind was still in a daze, but her heart gradually settled down, as if in a peaceful cradle. The man she was kissing, when he made a move, was enough to make her lose her heart. After she had made so much effort, Adam finally took the first step, and this step made the blueprint of their life clearly unfold in front of her eyes. Their future was like this kiss, lingering, long-lasting, and passionate.